It's been a long time since I last played Call of Duty. The last one I really invested time in was Modern Warfare 2 back in 2009. I was a teenager then, and I honestly loved it at the time. It felt fresh, fast paced, and the multiplayer was super addictive. But after that, I kind of stepped away. Call of Duty has become one of the most successful franchises in modern history, and it's hard to find someone who hasn't played it at some point. But over the years, the series started to feel like it wasn't evolving very much. It was like they were putting out the same game over and over, only with a different setting or storyline. And part of that comes from the pace at which they release the games. It's like every year there's a new Call of Duty, but the core experience hasn't really changed. So now, after more than a decade, I'm finally picking up Call of Duty Black Ops 6. The big question for me is, has anything really changed, or is this just another Call of Duty game with a fresh coat of paint? Call of Duty really struck gold with the Modern Warfare era, particularly with Call of Duty 4 and Modern Warfare 2, which set a new benchmark for shooters. Since then, the franchise has been fine-tuning that same formula, refining it down to a razor's edge, rather than innovating or taking any real risks. This has led to a game that feels incredibly polished and crisp, but it also means that Black Ops 6 doesn't feel like a major step forward, even after over a decade of releases. While the game is undeniably addictive thanks to its satisfying mechanics and progression systems, it also feels a bit exploitative. The way it pulls players in through psychological triggers like rewarding you for everything from kill streaks to micro progressions. Sure, the game is easily accessible to casual players, but that accessibility comes at the cost of depth. It's a game that's easy to pick up and play, but for the more dedicated gamers, that lack of complexity can feel limiting. The story, voice acting, and animation are solid enough, but the writing is often corny and predictable. The characters try their best, but the dialogue can sometimes feel like it's leaning into cliches, making the narrative more of a backdrop than a standout feature. Black Ops 6 doesn't break any new ground, and while it can be fun, it's built more to keep players coming back for more than to truly innovate or push boundaries.
You've been saving that one, haven't you?
It's good seeing you again.
Well, look at that, Adler.
Most people play Call of Duty for the multiplayer, so let's start there. From the very first match, Black Ops 6 hits that sweet spot of fast, fluid, and relentless action that has made Call of Duty a household name. The gunplay is as satisfying as ever, whether you're picking off enemies at range with a sniper or getting up close and personal with a shotgun. Every weapon feels distinct, each shot feels impactful, and the sound design really sells the experience, making you feel like you're really in the fight. The movement is tight, with fast sprints, responsive sliding, and that classic snap to aim down sights that keeps the pace furious and constantly engaging. Maps are designed for fluidity, encouraging both tactical positioning and chaotic firefights, and it all ties together in a way that feels incredibly polished. But what really keeps players coming back is the reward system. Black Ops 6 has perfected the progression loop, and it's hard not to get sucked in. Whether you're grinding to unlock new weapons or leveling up to unlock new perks, it's all designed to keep you hooked. Every kill and every objective completed is a small step towards your next reward. And those kill streaks, from UAVs to airstrikes, feel incredibly satisfying to earn and use, adding that extra layer of excitement to matches. The constant feedback loop you get through progression is like a dopamine hit, and it's clear that the developers know exactly how to keep players engaged. Where things start to feel a bit off is in the game's newer features, many of which seem to only amplify the chaos and breakneck speed of the gameplay. A prime example is the reworked score streak system. In previous games, players had to carefully plan out their streaks, building towards bigger and bigger rewards with each successful kill or objective. Now, in Black Ops 6, the score streaks are more easily earned, with nearly every positive action a player takes contributing to that streak. They're designed to trigger faster and more frequently. While this might sound like a good thing at first, it only exacerbates the already fast-paced and chaotic nature of the gameplay. Matches often feel like an endless string of explosions, airstrikes, and chopper gunners, with little time to breathe or get into a tactical rhythm. The pacing is so relentless that it can be overwhelming, leaving little room for strategy beyond just trying to stay alive long enough to rack up another kill streak. The introduction of the combat specialty system has taken the franchise's trademark chaos to new heights as well. Specialty bonuses are provided to players who use 3 of the same perk type. By tying powerful bonuses to the player's choice of perk categories, such as the speed boosting Enforcer or the wall spotting Recon, the game amplifies the already frenzied multiplayer experience. This system forces players to juggle between optimizing their loadouts for specialized buffs or embracing diversity for adaptability, adding yet another layer of unpredictability to the battlefield. While it is undeniably engaging to build a loadout around these specialties, it creates yet another angle for the spamming of abilities and effects in a match. The sprinting, sliding, and diving can feel cool to execute, but in my opinion is overall detrimental to the experience. These mechanics encourage manic, chaotic styles of gameplay. While Call of Duty has always been fast-paced, there was more of an emphasis on strategic positioning and teamwork. This more tactical environment has been degraded by an environment that encourages a more reflexive, ninja action movie style of combat. Players will dive over counters at high speeds while shooting backwards with unreasonable accuracy, or they will just slide tackle you as you round a corner. I don't deny that there is fun to be had in this system, but in my opinion, it damages any true competitive or strategic elements that Call of Duty previously had, in place of a system of trick shots and mechanics that make players feel cool. While these innovations were clearly designed to keep players engaged and make the experience feel fresh, they end up accelerating the chaos rather than refining the core gameplay. Instead of feeling like a carefully paced shooter, Black Ops 6 becomes a fast, almost overwhelming experience, and it's hard to appreciate the finer details. The game moves at a speed that makes it tough to enjoy the tactical elements, and while it's certainly fun in short bursts, it can leave you feeling mentally exhausted and yearning for something a bit more substantial.
Target eliminado.
Eyes on enemy.
While Call of Duty primarily exists for multiplayer, I like to play through the campaign as well. Call of Duty has pretty much always done a decent job with these. Nothing groundbreaking, but they offer interesting topics, enjoyable characters, solid cutscenes, and sometimes little snippets of history. While Black Ops 6 stays true to these things, it has to be the corniest Call of Duty story I have ever experienced. Granted, like I said in the beginning, I haven't kept up with the series for some time.
Ever do anything like this before?
No, but I don't see any better options, and I'm running out of bullets. Get ready!
The story follows a small team of CIA agents who were recently suspended from the agency, who then take it upon themselves to combat a deep web of corruption and prevent a devastating impending chemical weapons attack. Right off the bat, you realize that Call of Duty has abandoned its Soldiers of War setting and decided to make a cheesy spy movie. The crew will consist of the crippled old veteran agent, your highly moral leader, the mysterious and stealthy female, the badass who never takes off his sunglasses, the tech genius who can hack anything with ease, and of course, your character, who is really just nothing.
The bag's for you, Case.
Come on, Case.
Let's go, Case.
Case, we have something. Check it out.
This ragtag crew goes on to solve the deepest of the world's military conflicts against monumental odds, all while showing almost no concern and delivering corny line after corny line. This isn't to say that there isn't any entertainment to be had in this type of storytelling. It's engaging enough, and the later stages actually present some topics of emotional depth. However, overall, the writing and storytelling lack any strong artistic expression.
You good to go?
Am now.
Setting the story aside, I think the developers actually made some interesting gameplay mechanic improvements for the campaign. Call of Duty has always been pretty straight up in its approach to the campaign. You are presented with a mission in which you go from fight to fight. You have a gun, some grenades, and maybe a few other mission-specific tools to help you. Occasionally, they throw in a stealth mission or some quick-time events. Wash, rinse, repeat. In Black Ops 6, however, they expanded upon this system in what I believe to be a mostly positive way. Black Ops 6 offers a wider variety of equipment and enemy types. This allows developers to design each encounter with more intention and depth. Rather than always dealing with the grunt troops over and over, players will encounter elite enemies that force them to adapt, utilizing a variety of tools and the environment to handle scenarios that are a little more complex and interesting than previous entries. Each elite enemy attacks the player with different tactics. For example, a minigunner has a lot of health and pins the player down, making it difficult to move around the battlefield and find a good angle. The shotgunner also has a lot of health and relentlessly pursues the player, forcing them out of cover, leaving them vulnerable and constantly on the move. New equipment types help you handle the deeper complexity. The game introduces activatable but breakable armor, new types of supportive tools that offer stuns or instant health regen. This combination of elements helps add depth to the campaign's gameplay while simultaneously balancing the difficulty level, especially when playing on the harder modes. Additionally, there are a surprising amount of mission types in this game. Of course, there are the classic high-intensity combat and stealth missions that are familiar for the franchise, but they also introduce these sort of detective missions that offer dialogue options and multiple ways to pursue a single objective. These are a nice change of pace, but are really more for show than thoughtful, well-designed additions. From my experience, there wasn't really much room for failure in these missions, and the choices you made were more for role-playing purposes than something that actually affected gameplay or the outcome of the story. There is also a small open-world mission in which you drive around the area with your team, completing both optional and primary objectives, in an attempt to gather ordnance for your upcoming mission, gain intel on the overall plot, and even gather money to bring back to your home base for upgrades. The most surprising of these mission types was the horror levels. They even managed to work the zombies into the campaign. The variety was quite pleasant. I do think, however, the campaign has a bit of an identity crisis. While they presented fun versions of several different styles and blended them together well into an overall narrative, none of them on their own felt very refined. The zombies mode in Call of Duty games has always been a good bit of fun to play with friends. I think that continues to ring true in this installment. Bunkering down with your friends and fighting off hordes of zombies in the whimsical setting of mystery boxes, laser guns, bubblegum upgrades, and so on is undoubtedly a good time, and I'm glad it exists as a mode in the larger offering of the game. If I were to critique this, however, I'd say that it has evolved from the original friends defending a house versus wave after wave to a large map that is overabundant with upgrades, items, activities, objectives, etc. It is still a great time to memorize and master the maps with a group of dedicated friends and see how many rounds you can go, but the map feels a bit chaotic and disorganized. Sometimes less is more, and I think that applies very directly to the newest rendition of Call of Duty Zombies. So, after a decade of ignoring the Call of Duty franchise, where do I land after playing Black Ops 6? It turns out that it was harder for me to answer this question than I thought. Call of Duty is clearly a game that is designed to sell to the masses and be rapidly produced for yearly releases. While I care about the gaming industry and hate to see it cheapened by this type of franchise, I also recognize how much fun one can have while playing these games. I think overall, since my time playing the Modern Warfare games, Call of Duty has shown very little innovation, and a decent chunk of the innovation they have shown has actually cheapened the brand. But what they have done well is refine their core concept down to a science, and that core is a hell of a lot of fun for a lot of people, and in small doses, even myself. The best analogy I have for this is in a world full of talented chefs who produce amazing and unique dishes, sometimes all you really want is Doritos. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please give us a like and subscribe to support the channel. And until next time, cheers.